Hi everyone, I'm Chris Hernandez, Director of City Communications, and this is the Weekly Report. The big news at City Hall this week is that we have extended the stay-at-home order through May 15th. Mayor Lucas announced that change from the steps of City Hall, saying that all elements of the stay-at-home order remain exactly the same. We've just extended the length, and he explains why that is so important right now.
We all recognize it does us no good if we go through all these steps now, and then in June, in July, in August, we're saying that because we reopened too quickly, we have to actually go back to some of the very steps that we've taken now. And so that's why we're going through, in my opinion, the very important work to make sure that we are ready and that we're prepared in this situation.
The sooner that we can slow this down, the sooner we can open back up and not have to close again. But most of us are saying we're going to have to close down at least 3 or 4 more times over the next 24 months if we do this well. If we don't do it well, it'll be more often than that and for much worse close downs than what we've had so far.
And if we can stay at home for the next few weeks, that can really define what we look like at the end of this. So if we do not want to look like Detroit, we do not want to look like New York, then I agree with what Mayor and Dr. Archer have said. We need to continue the stay-at-home order.
The tragedy of coronavirus has hit home here at City Hall, just like it has all across our community. We have suffered the first death from COVID-19 of a city employee. He is EMT Billy Birmingham. He has worked with the city for many years, and we turned on the Firefighters Memorial Fountain on 31st Street in his honor.
Today, we are here to recognize the sacrifice of one of our heroes in Kansas City. Ever since the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis began, we knew that there were many people who could change the way they work. We knew that there were many people who could change the types of activities that they were doing, but that there would be people who would keep coming to work. And today we're here to recognize the sacrifice of the first person to lose their life who works for Kansas City in the line of duty in connection with COVID-19, and that's EMT Billy Birmingham.
It feels very appropriate to talk about Billy's dedication to service from this place, the Firefighters Memorial Fountain, where the names of all dedicated members of KCFD who gave their lives in service to our city are memorialized. On behalf of the men and women of KCFD, I would like to express our most heartfelt condolences to his wife Tondra and his children, grandchildren, and extended family who are here today. I would also like to thank them for sharing him with us, his first responder family. And we, the dedicated members of KCFD, will continue to honor Billy by carrying forward his love of service to the residents of Kansas City, Missouri.
Earth Day is coming up again. It's the 50th anniversary, and we will celebrate on April 22nd. We'll also be celebrating all year long. The KC Green team has some new tips for you. It's posted on the city's website at kcmo.gov/kcgreen. We also have a new video for you. Check this out.
Hi Kansas City, this is Shannon with the Solid Waste Services Division, and I'm here to give you an everyday Earth Day tip. Please Kansas City, recycle right. Improperly recycled items do more harm than good. They can contaminate other recycling streams, or even worse, damage equipment at recycling facilities. The average nationwide contamination rate of recycling is 25%. That means 1 in 4 items placed in recycling bins are contaminated or not actually recyclable. Here are some tips to help us increase the amount of waste KCMO keeps out of our landfill. 1. Make sure your items are empty, clean, and dry. Recyclables that once contained food or chemicals are a huge problem. That extra yogurt or ketchup left in the bottom of a container will leak out during the transportation or sorting process, contaminating cardboard, paper, and other plastic items. Suddenly, all your items, and maybe your neighbors also, are going straight to the landfill. Never place greasy cardboard in your bin. Even water can make paper and cardboard unfit for the recycling process. Rinse your items, allow them to dry or shake out excess water, and check the weather before placing your recycling bin out. If it's going to rain or be windy, wait to put out your recycling for the next week. 2. Do not bag your recycling. Recycling facilities rely on technologies such as magnets and puffs of air to separate recyclables. If your recyclables are in bags, they can't go through those processes. Plastic bags are even a bigger issue than paper bags. They wrap around equipment and damage it. And since they are lightweight, they end up in bales of paper, contaminating them and lowering their value on the recycling market. Take your plastic grocery bags to a local retailer with plastic bag-specific recycling. 3. Don't crush your cans. Aluminum cans are separated from other materials at the recycling facility with a special electric current. When the cans are crushed, it is harder for the equipment to identify them, and they end up in the wrong waste stream. 4. If it's smaller than a credit card, don't put it in your bin. Most tiny items in recycling bins end up being sorted out and go to the landfill. Those that don't end up jamming up the equipment. If you want to recycle your plastic bottle caps, keep them on the containers. And please, no shredded paper in your recycling bin. When you are trying to determine what to recycle, please remember, when in doubt, throw it out. You can find more information on the items you can and can't recycle curbside at kcmo.gov/recycle. If you would like to learn more about how to make every day Earth Day, go to our website, kcmo.gov/Earth Day.
If you live in the Northland, this is your big week for leaf and brush pickup. Be sure to have it out at your curb on your regularly scheduled trash day. If you want to drop off your leaves and brush at one of the city's drop-off sites, remember the sites are closed on Saturdays through May 15th to help comply with the mayor's emergency order. But KC residents can still drop off their leaves and brush Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with proof of residency. Non-residents can drop it off for a small fee. The city's 3 leaf and brush drop-off centers are located at 11660 North Main Street, 1815 North Choteau Trafficway, and 10301 Raytown Road. Go to kcmo.gov/leaf and brush for all the drop-off requirements. As you know, we're building a new terminal at KCI, and that means some slight changes in the traffic pattern. You'll obviously be directed by signs as you go to the airport. But here's a look at what you'll need to do. Beginning April 28th, the circle in front of Terminal A will be closed. There are roundabouts though, and that will take the traffic to Terminal C first and then Terminal B and then bring you back out. You can see it's pretty easy. It's using some of the existing roads. We just want you to know about this before it starts happening again on April 28th. Even though the stay-at-home order has been extended through May 15th, and that does mean that city facilities are still closed, remember we have a virtual city hall. You can still do business with us online. Remember, our 311 operators are still taking your calls. You can also go online at kcmo.gov/311. Nearly all city fees, such as parking tickets, municipal court fees, water bills, and others, can be accessed by visiting kcmo.gov/pay. And the City Council continues to meet, but again, they are meeting online. You can watch those meetings on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/kcmocco. If you'd like to testify on any ordinance that is being heard, please send that testimony in advance to our email at publictestimony@kcmo.org. Be sure to include the ordinance number in the subject line. We'll read those aloud during the public comment period as time permits, and it will be added to the public record. And thank you once again for joining us for the weekly report. Again, remember, the stay-at-home order has been extended through May 15th, so please stay home, stay strong, stay safe, and stay healthy. I'm Chris Hernandez with the weekly report.
I'm a part of the Roanoke Park Conservancy, and we're a nonprofit that's 8 years in the making. And what we do is cut honeysuckle and a weed tree called a lanthus. We decided about a month ago that we would take some of the money at the Roanoke Park Conservancy and we would pay people that are out of work.
Very fortunate to, during these times, to have something, outdoors. I've always actually wanted to work outdoors, doing something with the community.
So everybody you see here is out of work except for 3 of us, and we're volunteers. The rest of these people are out of a job, and we worked here. This is our 6th day of working here.
ever since the COVID-19 pretty much took storm. This kind of gave me some hope to get some work and just be outdoors, still practicing social distancing, but just kind of pretty much being out, being connected kind of with nature, and it's actually been really good, I think, just for the long bean.
Good afternoon, Facebook Live viewers. My name is Caitlin and this is Derek, and we are coming to you today from the Resource Room here in the Education Center at the Kansas City Zoo. Derek, what is the Resource Room?
Well, Kate, the Resource Room is a place where we house all of our biofacts. Basically, we have bones, skulls, pelts, feathers, and fur.
And what actually is a biofact and what do we use them for?
Well, Kate, a biofact is a material that comes from animals that we use to educate the public about these animals. So it can help us teach people about them as well as to teach us about the animals that they came from.
That's an interesting last portion that you said there, because I know that we do use a lot of different biofacts for identification purposes to help us figure out what type of animal we're actually looking at. So today we're going to learn a little bit about skulls and how to identify what type of animal it's come from. So morphology is the study of the parts of an animal, and today we're going to look a little bit more in depth on skulls. So there are three main facets that we're going to use to help us ID what specific animal we're looking at when we see a skull. The first one is going to deal with its eyes.
So taking a look here at this skull, we can notice that the orbitals or the eye sockets are placed in the front of the skull. This is going to indicate that this animal likes to hunt. It's a predator, so it needs to have depth perception in order to catch its food. It gains that depth perception from having a slight overlap in the field of vision between these two eyes. It needs to have that in order to be able to catch its food. Taking a look at a different animal, a prey animal, we notice that the orbitals are located on the sides of the skull. This allows the animal to have greater width of vision, so it can see further around itself, but it lacks that depth perception that the predator species has. A good way to keep this in mind is that eyes in the front, it likes to hunt. Eyes on the side, it's gonna wanna hide.
The second one, which you're probably not going to use often, is where the foramen magnum is located. So that is the hole that is on the back of the skull where the spine would usually connect to. Any hole that is toward the bottom of the skull is going to indicate that that animal probably walked upright. So the one that Derek has in his hand right now is from a chimp. We know that chimps are going to walk a little bit more upright. The one that he's going to pull out now, which is a Tasmanian devil, has that foramen magnum a little bit higher up, which means that that animal probably walked on all fours. And then the third and final, and probably the most important, is going to be dentation.
So dentation, or teeth, is going to be really important in IDing these skulls. So here in the front we have our incisors. These are going to be used for cutting and gnawing food, followed by our canines, which are used for piercing or sometimes for self-defense. And then lastly we have our premolars and our molars. These are going to be used for grinding up food.
So now that we have a little bit of an idea of what dentation looks like, let's take a look at some more skulls to figure out what those animals eat. Teeth come in all shapes and sizes, and they help an animal eat specific foods. So in front of me right now, I have three specific lower jaws from different animals that eat different types of food. The first one that we're going to look at is this big one right in the middle. So this is an animal that has a ton of flat premolars and molars in the back. They don't really have those front canines that we talked about with animals that are going to probably eat more along the lines of meat. And they do have some flat incisors at the front, probably for grasping specific food. So an animal that has a ton of flat premolars and molars in the back is probably going to be an herbivore. So an herbivore is going to be an animal that eats plants, allows them to grind and chew on whatever type of food that they are going to be eating. The second one we're going to look at is much different. This one hardly has any flat premolars or molars in the back. In fact, they're pretty sharp. And now we can actually see some pretty prominent canines at the bottom and some sharp incisors at the front. You're probably already guessing what this might belong to. It is a carnivore, so an animal that is going to primarily eat meat. And in the middle, one that does a little bit of both, much like us, is going to be an omnivore. So it has those incisors in the front for grasping food. It has canines, not very prominent, but they're there. And then it has sharper premolars and molars in the back for grinding. So it can eat a little bit of everything. So looking at these three mandibles, you can probably start to guess how you can ID animals using specific teeth structures. Let's put your knowledge to the test and actually have you guess on a couple of skulls we'll bring out.
All right, now that we've learned a little bit about dentition, we're going to take a look here at these animal skulls and see if we can identify if they're a carnivore, an herbivore, or an omnivore. So here with our first skull, we can see that it's got some prominent canine teeth, followed with some pretty sharp premolars and molars. There are some incisors here in the front, but they don't seem to be too prominent for the dentition of the animal as a whole. So they probably don't use those incisors a whole lot. Which animal do you think this is? Do you think it's a carnivore, an herbivore, or an omnivore? If you guessed carnivore, you'd be correct. This is a carnivore. We can tell it's a carnivore because of these really prominent canine teeth. It means it's gonna be used for piercing its food and kind of making the kill. All right, our next skull here we're gonna take a look at is right next to me. do we think that this animal is an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore? Here we can see that it's got some pretty pronounced incisors. I don't see too pronounced of canines, if the prevalence of them at all. And then I see a large row of premolars and molars. So that means that this animal probably does a lot of grinding and crushing with its food. So taking your best guess, do you think this animal is going to be an omnivore, a carnivore, or an herbivore? If you guessed herbivore, you'd be correct. Here we have a zebra. So this animal is not native to Missouri, but it might be closely related to a deer or a horse. Moving on from this skull to our next skull, we're going to take a look at. We're going to guess if this is an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore. Here we can see that there's some pretty pronounced incisors as well as some canine teeth. Taking a look back here, we also have the presence of some premolars and molars that seem to be pretty prominent as well. So, using your best guess, do you think this animal is a herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore? If you guessed an omnivore, you'd be correct. Here we have a raccoon. This is an opportunistic animal, meaning it feeds on a wide variety of different foods. So it needs to have the presence of those different variety of teeth in order to help it to eat those different kinds of foods. All right, and then lastly, we're gonna move on to this skull here. This is very unique in the sense that this animal's got some very prominent incisors. We also have the lack of canine teeth and the prominence of these molars in the back. So this is actually a rodent skull. This is from a beaver. So beavers are herbivores, whereas a lot of rodents are actually omnivores. Taking a look here at these teeth on the front, these really prominent incisors, we notice just firsthand is that how orange they are. They're orange because of the prevalence of iron in their enamel. Because there's iron in there, it makes the outside really hard, but the inside is soft. Because the outside is harder than the inside, these teeth self-sharpen whenever they bite down. This is really important for keeping their teeth sharp so that they're able to chew on their foods and especially tough things like trees that they're trying to get down. Along with this, it's really important for them to constantly be chewing on things because their teeth never stop growing. If their teeth keep growing and they don't chew on things, they might even grow into the top of their mouth, which would be very painful and disruptive for the animal.
Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about skulls and how to ID them. Comment below any skulls that you've come across in your hikes while being home. And we can't wait to see you when we reopen again here at the Kansas City Zoo.